Welcome to episode 79 of Uncommon Sense. This is Dean Holmes doing a solo episode today as Mr. Kamanis is off in Italy on his holidays. So the topic for today is the evolution of client experience in financial planning. And so what we wanted to do through this process is actually just reflect on what's changed over the last 12 months and also 5 to 10 years in terms of client situations, and more importantly, what's changed and how we need to respond to those changes, both from what's happening outside of financial planning and what is actually also happening inside financial planning as well. So if you are watching and following live today, thank you first and foremost. And if you'd like to put any comments or notes in the chat, I'll be able to pick those up live and happily use some of your comments to continue the conversation. So please make some comments along as we go. So obviously the first one, it's a really common topic, but in relation to technology as the first step in terms of the change in the nature of the situation. So obviously clients have a greater expectation, or clients have a greater use first and foremost of technology. So we have to remember that when we're developing the systems that we have control over. So acknowledging that we don't control everything in the financial planning process, but the expectation now, if I hold it up, clients have their mobile phone in their hand literally 100% of the time. And so what we need to be doing within our businesses is thinking about what the implications of that are, both positive and negative. And so first and foremost, clients have an expectation that they can do most of their work with their mobile phone. And so one of the interesting things that means is that clients don't carry their driver's license with them anymore. And so when it comes to ID verification as one thing, we need to be careful and know how we're going to do that from a digital perspective, as opposed to the traditional way that we might have taken photos of ID through that process. Second thing happens at the same time is that clients expect to be able to sign, chat, and text message you at different points in time. So unless we set some rules around this, it can get quite noisy. So if you imagine a client and how clients are communicating now with all of their networks. So they're calling some people, they're texting some people, they're sending messages on WhatsApp and the other messaging platforms like that. They might be doing the same in Instagram or Facebook, as well as email. And so there's a huge variety of ways that clients can be talking to their networks. And so what we need to be careful in our businesses is making sure that we are choosing the ways in which we would like clients to communicate with us in a secure manner. So the secure manner might be email, might be text message. More likely it's going to, over time, be a client portal, which we've talked about before. But what we have to do is actually, in a friendly way, force clients down this particular path so that they are using the right technology for us to communicate with them. Another one, which can be seen quite obvious, but it's always good as a reminder through this process, is the relationships through booking a meeting with your advisor. So when we think about booking a meeting with an advisor, obviously when we do it with our dentist or our doctor and everything like that, we're using online booking systems. Now, there's either Calendly or Booking. I've spoken about those before, but one of the interesting insights that I have around what's going to happen in the future is that this is obviously a mandatory for everyone in terms of business. But the more important bit, if you don't have it, it's actually starting to be a reason why clients or the children of your clients won't actually want to deal with you going forward. So I have this story where we can start to lose clients on the death of the first of the couple, not the death of the second. And one of the reasons why we might start to lose clients on the death of the first is that's when the children come in and start helping their parents, deal with their financial planning situation. And that's because perhaps the primary person has changed. And so the second person, who has the survivor, it needs a little bit of help along the way. And so as a result of that, for example, the children come in and they try to have an understanding of the parent's financial situation. So one, we've got to be prepared to be able to talk to children. And the second thing we need to do is make sure that we then have the right technology that we can talk to those children. And those children are 40, 50, and 60, first and foremost. But the important thing is they're going to get frustrated with friction around technology or lack thereof if we don't have that within our business. And so one of the stories that I say is that the child goes, I can't even book a meeting with your advisor, mum, because they have an old website, have no information on it. I can't get a meeting without having to call your advisor and going through that process. And so that friction leads to the daughter saying, let's just go and use my financial advisor. We've got this app. We can talk to the advisor. We can book a meeting online. So it's really important. We need to be thinking about this, not for the convenience of ourselves as the advisors, which it is, but actually the convenience of the clients and the children of our clients that are going to be helping these older clients through this transition of technology. Another evolution that I think we should be aware of in terms of the client expectations in financial planning is actually starting to think about how humans want to consume information. So if you think about the rise of the social media type of platforms, really that information is all in video content. So it's short, 3 minutes or less. It goes straight to the point and it educates or distracts, depending what it is, the reader or the consumer. And so from a financial planning perspective, it's great that we could think about this in the same way. So when we're sending information to a client, how do we choose to send it? Can we send it as a video? Can we send it as audio? Or should we send it as text? The majority of people would prefer to receive information through audio or video, and it's actually very easy to do. The technology that I use to do this webinar is very easy to use, very light, and able to be translated into short, quick videos to clients. The other software we use is Loom, which is available to record quick one-off messages to clients. You can password protect them. You can put them inside the portal, all of these type of things. But it is starting to speak to clients in the way that they need to consume information. And this is the expectation going forward, is that clients are going to expect that we understand them, which we do, but this is a different level of understanding how they like to consume information and preparing the statement of advice, presentation, or summaries in the correct format overall. Next thing that clients may evolve their expectation isn't around the speed of service. And so the speed of the world has sped up over the last 10 years. And so there's an expectation, or I suppose a surprise, when things take longer than planned. Now, they're not always our fault, but we're in charge of the expectation management with. So a great example of frustration that I've heard in the last month is essentially the last month has all been around the communication for superannuation funds, doing third-party authorities, HESTA closing down, all of those type of things. And so third-party authorities that take multiple days to get registered on the system is a surprise to clients. It's obviously a surprise to advisors as well, but we need to set that expectation because clients have an expectation that the service is going to be much faster or the implementation is much faster, and then unfortunately get surprised on the downside when things haven't been met their timing expectations. So I think an interesting one is their service expectations overall in terms of the speed at which we would expect to get service from our advice. Next thing, so that's all if you put that in a bucket of technology related exercise, the next thing that's really changed along this way is probably like this idea of when we move into a transparency of fees. So I think we can do a much better job now compared to 10 years ago of explaining the fees. I think clients are much more able to listen to what we're able to explain in terms of our fees. And it's our job to keep that as simple as possible so clients know what we're charging and they're able to determine the value very quickly and easily through this process. Next category of evolving changes of clients for us to be thinking of is there's a growing field of the coaching component of clients. So probably traditionally 20 years ago, we gave advice in relation to things that clients should be doing, contributions that they should be making, investments they should be making, etc. And so what the industry is evolving into is clients are seeking a little bit more coaching elements. Now that might be coaching elements around their business, might be coaching elements around how they're spending and saving, for example, or it may even be coaching elements around how they're having conversations with their partners in relation to money. And so it's a little bit from a psychological perspective, we're doing these coaching elements throughout the process. And we have the ability to be quite good at it because advisors know the detail in terms of the financial side of it, but also can have really good conversations between humans. And it's starting to be an expectation that we can navigate this. The next challenge will be navigating the conversations between intergenerational wealth, if you haven't started having those, in terms of getting the right information out of both generations or three generations in relation to how capital might be heading towards those generations before or after death. In terms of personalization and customization, so this is the iPhone and Google side of it, is that they've been very good at making sure that although it's the same device, every device is personalized and customized for the user's individual taste. And so there's definitely going to be more of this as we move forward in financial services, is that the service, the offering, and the solutions that each client have can actually be really tailored to their needs. The investments might be the same at the end of the day, but the information on how it's explained and the service that sits around it is really valuable. And so the final thing in relation to these changing expectations is we have to constantly look at other industries to see how they have evolved and make sure that we're evolving with that. And so we can get a lot of hints from other industries. I often talk about other professionals and what advisors can learn from that. But if we think about other industries, and so if we pick up, for example, the grocery shopping as an example, and think about how the evolving consumer use of the technology. So Woolworths now and Coles obviously allows you to order online, and often the speed at which it's delivered in metro CBD areas, for those that are in those areas, the speed at which those are delivered now is actually on par with you planning and writing a list and actually being able to go to the shopping center. And so some of the changes is that people are using the apps, as I would do, to build a shopping list, which is just adding things to the cart as and when they need it. Once it gets to a certain urgency or dollar amount, then the order gets placed and it comes through. And so it's completely changed the timing and planning in relation to this because people are doing the work along the way. So I think once again, if you go back to the phone, and what they're doing is that clients are having their phone in their hand. Every time they realize they're out of milk, they're going to their phone to put it in the list. And so to reiterate the point of being where clients are, if your app is on the phone or your communication is structured in the phone in that way as well, you're going to be right there with the client's hands. And so I think it's in conclusion of this short episode, because I've got no one to ask me questions, but I think it's really important, this idea that we continue to be aware of what the client's expectations are going forward. Our ability to personalize experiences for clients is going to increase with our use of AI as well. And the last component of us trying to make this a personalized experience for clients is making sure that we're recording all of this information in the right place in our businesses. So personal preferences and tastes and goals and objectives and all of these small things that clients mention, we actually need to make sure we're putting that in a location where essentially AI can look at over in the future, because then what's going to happen is we're actually going to have the ability for AI to be helping us personalize client situations or client experiences because we've collected the information in the past. So I have this example whereby, say if you collected the transcripts for the last 5 years with a particular client meeting, and so 5 years ago, the client might have mentioned a goal that they wanted to achieve when their child had finished high school. And so it was mentioned almost in passing 5 years ago that they wanted to go to XYZ restaurant in 5 years' time to when their child had finished high school. And so that would have been a very small comment in a transcript of a very long meeting. But then 5 years later, this is the idea of AI. AI has read all the 5 years worth of client file notes. And if theoretically it knows the client file as well, coming into this meeting, we're able to actually remind the client of what they said 5 years ago, not because we read the transcript, not because we created a task to do it in 5 years' time, but because we're partnered with the AI to actually keep us really up to date as what the client goals are. So the main thing that we can do going forward is make sure we're recording all the client meetings and capturing this really valuable information. And sometimes we capture things we don't even know how we're going to use it, but we're capturing the really valuable information now, keeping it in a place where in the future we're going to be continue to personalize the client journey. And that's going to help us meet an ever increasing bar of client expectations as we move into this world that's going to demand even more personalization of service. As I said before, your investment outcomes might be exactly the same, but we want a personalization of service along the way so clients feel that we really understand them and we're providing them a great level of service. So that's it for today. That's episode 79 of Uncommon Sense. We've got a few more special guest stars coming up over the next few weeks. Craig Kamanis is back from holidays in a couple of weeks. So hi, Craig. I know you'll be watching this episode from Italy, but thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.